What's going on, guys? I'm IcyRhythms, and this is my review for Far Cry 5.
Eat your maker!
Ubisoft has been my favorite publisher this generation. I've poured tons of hours into stuff like Rainbow Six Siege, Assassin's Creed games, and of course, games like The Division. I know Ubisoft had what many would say was a pretty rough start at the beginning of the generation with things like Assassin's Creed Unity. It was very buggy. The PC version in particular didn't really run all that well. It still doesn't run all that well. It kind of depends on your PC setup and whether or not you can brute force your way through a lot of the BS, and rightfully so that some people would begin asking questions and whether or not Ubisoft was going to be same old Ubisoft. Can they make great games anymore? A lot of questions, right? Does Far Cry 5 suffer from a lot of those same problems, a lot of those same issues, a lot of those same questions? Let's find out. As usual, we will discuss the visuals of Far Cry 5 first. I think it's always important to get the graphics out of the way because for some people that is the most important part. For me, it's definitely an important part, whether you're talking about just what you can see or the performance of the game, optimization. It's definitely important, but far from the most important in my opinion. And in my opinion, it shouldn't be for anyone else either, but that's for an entirely different video. This is definitely one of the better looking games this generation, one of the better looking open world games as far as first person open world games go. It's in the conversation for being the best, but I don't know if I can say that it's the best looking game. The problem with Far Cry 5 is it looks really good at times, and then it's inconsistent, and you just kind of say to yourself, this isn't ugly, but this looks okay. When I heard that Far Cry 5 would take place in Montana, I got super excited. I can't explain to you why because I don't actually know myself, but I've always had a love for the state of Montana. Seeing it in a few of my films over the years certainly helped that. I'm sure it did. It's just a beautiful piece of country, and I've always been fascinated. I think Ubisoft did the best job they could to try and have this game feel as Montana as possible. Far Cry games have always had really nice visuals and pushed technology forward in their own way. The lighting at certain times of day in Far Cry 5 really blew me away. That more than anything else looks exceptionally good. But again, not just the lighting, but things like textures and, different things with buildings and areas with a lot of grass and trees and things like that. From a distance, looks really good. Up close, you see some of the flaws. It's not perfect, as no game is, but I think it looks really good. But there are times, like a lot of other games that I play, where you just kind of want to walk around slowly and explore and truly appreciate the craftsmanship, the surroundings of the game and the hard work that went into making this look and run really well. Character models, like any other Far Cry game, are very detailed, and I would say that some of the lesser NPCs, like the generic name NPCs, companions, even some of the companions with the generic names, those don't really look all that special. I mean, I guess for the most part, there's definitely worse looking games when it comes to level of detail on NPCs and environments in general, but even the same 10 or 12 enemy types that you kill over and over in Far Cry 5, a lot of them don't have the greatest detail, but some of the actual, cool name companions and those that are handing out certain quests and things like that, a lot of those characters are very detailed, and Ubisoft did what I feel is a great job with those characters. Some of you know how I feel about water, and the water in Far Cry 5 is really good. It's not great, it's not amazing. It's not GTA or Sea of Thieves level of good. Definitely not Sea of Thieves level of good. There's a bar that's been set there, but it's definitely got some fantastic looking water at times. Like I said, couple that with how the lighting looks at times, especially, during the morning or sundown. It looks really good. There's a lot of things about the game that look really good, but certain times of day, standing by some water, maybe you're thinking about fishing or something in this game, it can blow you away. Like your jaw may drop from time to time. I know mine did. Optimization and performance, on a 1700X, right? Ryzen, 8 cores, 16 thread, absolute beast, and a 980 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM. I've been on my 980 Ti for just about 3 years now. I think in about 2-3 more months, it'll be a full 3 years, and it has served me very well. I'd say most of the time the game runs well enough. I mean, everyone's got their own preference. In a first person game, I would like at least something beyond, a little beyond 60 frames a second. So like, but if I can get between 75 and 100 in most first person games, that's kind of the sweet spot for me. And I got that most of the time in Far Cry 5, but it did require some tweaking, and I couldn't have everything on the high setting or even the highest setting in some cases. The higher settings in Far Cry 5 are just really demanding, and it's one of those things where I can't understand why. It's, one of those games where, even the differences between them aren't really that significant. You would have to look at, screenshots side by side to really see a difference in terms of that. It wasn't well optimized, in my opinion. Or maybe, a game like Far Cry 5 has really shown that the 980 Ti is in dire need of an upgrade. I'm not really sure, but I would say that there are more impressive games that, not only are more impressive, but also look better than this, that run a lot better. So, I mean, it's hard to really say what's going on here. It could just be, we can say that's just typical Ubisoft going to Ubisoft, but it's unfortunate. It's not a terribly optimized game. I wouldn't even say it's poorly optimized. I just think that they could have done a lot better job here, and the game isn't even one of the most impressive looking games that you'll ever see. I don't think that this will be one of those games that will stand the test of time, but once I finally get the upgrade, then we can go back and test and see. But I've read things, people with 1080 Ti's running this game at the highest settings, or even on the more basic settings, are right in the same ballpark that I'm sitting at, 75 FPS to 100 FPS, and no one really knows what's going on. It's probably something that won't get fixed, but again, it does run well for the most part. It doesn't seem to take advantage of, maybe 4, maybe 6 cores. I think beyond 4 cores, it's not really doing much, just based on the testing that I've done. And I have played this game a lot. I think I'm maybe 40, 50 hours into the experience. I've already beat it. I've already started a new playthrough. So I've done a lot of testing. I've seen a lot of the numbers. I just, I can't understand why so much horsepower for this is required. I mean, like I said, it's a good looking game, but it's not that special.
Over and over, the lives of the many have outweighed the lives of the few. This is how we survived. And we've forgotten.
The gameplay in Far Cry 5 is about what you'd expect from another Far Cry game from Ubisoft, right? If you enjoy that gameplay loop, which many refer to now, thank you, Jim Sterling, as the Ubification of their games, then you'll probably enjoy Far Cry 5 a lot. I'm assuming this is, a good and bad thing, depending on who you're asking. I actually had a lot of fun with it. It does follow, again, the typical Ubisoft open world, busy work formula. way of doing things. It just does. You need to know that going in. I'm being honest. This is a review. This kind of thing doesn't really bother me in the least. I play and enjoy a lot of games that have a similar gameplay loop where you're doing a lot of the same things or very similar things, very repetitive things over and over. It's all about whether or not you enjoy that gameplay loop, and I did. You know, it's not like it's news at this point. It doesn't do anything innovative. It doesn't do anything where your mind will be saying, man, this is completely new. This is completely innovative. I've never seen anything like this ever. I just found it really fun to play. The gunplay and overall mechanics of the game are just really, really satisfying to me. The death animations and overall animations in the game in general obviously helped with that, of course. I think Ubisoft is easily one of the best when it comes to creating animations for their games. And yes, it wouldn't be a review of mine when we talked about a game with guns if I didn't mention the reload animations. They're good. They're very good at times, very satisfying to reload the guns in this game, but this is far from the best. We've seen better. I know I have. I don't know if Far Cry 5 has the best takedowns in the entire Far Cry series, but it's really visceral at times, pulling a guy through a window or out of cover to kick him right in the face or slam him or her, yes, you can do that in this game, up against a wall or something. To me, again, it's just really, really satisfying. I did a really good job with animations and sound effects and things like that to really make you feel like you're doing these things. I also think they did a really good job with the stealth in Far Cry 5. It's not the greatest stealth, but the gameplay loop and the way the game is designed, it allows you to attack it many different ways. And obviously you can choose just the basic all stealth or, go in all guns blazing or something. But, I think Splinter Cell Blacklist referred to it as Panther, where you can have a combination of the two or even switch it up beyond that and maybe just like use explosives or something, or obviously there's a bow, right? There's a bow and there's arrows, and you can take that approach, but again that might tie in more with going all stealth or maybe like a Panther type of approach. But it's really it's all in your hands. It's a matter of preference, and I like to do in Far Cry a combination of a little stealth and a little guns blazing. That's just me. An example of this would be like, I may kill the guys surrounding an outpost, using stealth, and the guys on the inside just go guns blazing or use some explosives. But you definitely can't go the opposite with that. You can't go, guns blazing on the outside and then try to stealth on the inside, because by that time you already have anyone in the surrounding area, or probably even some of the nearby roads and dirt roads and things like that, coming at you around that base, around that outpost. There's no way. And someone's probably set off an alarm at that point, and then there's backup on the way as well. So you can't have it. You can have it both ways, but you can't have it the reverse of, going in guns blazing and then trying to stealth. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. So in terms of weapons, there is a lot to choose from. If you're into having a lot of choice, I think most of us are, then this game will not disappoint. There are a lot of attachments for some of those weapons as well, silencers, extended clips, red dots, scopes, you name it. It's probably there, different designs and versions of some of these same weapons. There is something here for everyone, in my opinion. I think one thing that actually surprised me about the gameplay is how much fun I was having driving around listening to the game's soundtrack and shooting enemies from the driver's seat in first person. This kind of mechanic should be in every game where it makes sense to have this kind of mechanic. Look, man, don't knock it until you try it, all right? That's all I'm saying. Don't knock it until you try it. Doing drive-bys next to enemies that are also driving or on foot is a lot of fun in this game. I don't know how they did it. I don't know why I find it as fun as I do, but it's a lot of fun, and I just refuse to change my mind on that. Sorry. This game also allows the use of the aforementioned companions, and if you want to play that way, you can, right? It's all in how you want to play. If you want to play with some help, you can choose to do that as well. I like having at least one companion in Far Cry 5. I think they went the extra mile with some of the companions because a lot of them have their own attitude and their response to certain situations actually feel genuine. They'll even make comments about other companions in your party. It's pretty interesting. The map is divided into 3 different sections, and you'll have to clear each one, obviously, in order to reach the end of the game. But with each of those 3 sections will come a boss, and you'll have to take each of those 3 down as well. I don't want to make it seem like you're locked out of anything. From the moment they drop you into that original tutorial mission where they're kind of giving you a feel for the game and showing you how to do a few things, you can go anywhere you want after you complete a few of those missions and nothing is holding you back. There is absolutely tons of stuff to do in this game. I can't really see anyone, I couldn't understand why anyone would say that this game lacks content. There is just so much to do, including this time around some fishing, which actually turned out to be pretty fun. I spent probably a total of 4 or 5 combined hours fishing in this game. It's really satisfying. It's actually an excellent way to not only earn achievements, but money in the game. You can fly many different plane and helicopter types. There's a mission to go and find this really cool semi-truck, like a lot of other vehicles in the game that you either earn or buy with the in-game currency, will be stored in your garage permanently for use anytime you want. With Far Cry 5, I don't think it would hurt to say I'd recommend doing a great deal of exploring and finding a lot of the perk points and extra money that's, scattered throughout this world. You'll be feeling a little down if you don't level up some of the game's better perks. Even companions have perks that you can choose to level. I'd say the essential stuff is more health, carry more ammo types, and being able to grapple in certain locations. The grapple mechanics surprised me as well. The game almost makes you feel like you're playing first-person Tomb Raider at times. These mechanics and parkour elements aren't for everyone. I just think that for me, it was a lot of fun. If you just want to shoot your way through most situations and not worry about, all of the extra money and perk points and things like that, you can do that. If there are any negatives to the gameplay or just overall experience, I think the open world aspect, like many other open world games, did contribute to a few of the problems, a few of the issues that I encountered during my time with Far Cry 5. And it's not an excuse, but there's any number of reasons that these kind of things will occur. It is an open world game. We can start there. Some platforms take priority over others. There's, sometimes they're strapped for amount of testers that they can have, something with the budget, any number of reasons. Some games, unfortunately are more broken and have a lot more issues than others. Some of them are just completely unplayable and people spend money on these things, and it's unfortunate, but that's for a different video. During some of the loading screens, for example, it would transition back into the gameplay and my hand would be out and I was like holding a gun, but there wouldn't be a gun there, and then it would reappear a moment or two later. I'm sure some of you have seen this, whether it's this game or another game. Some of you have seen something like this before. Just, minor annoyances, minor inconvenience to the experience. Sometimes I'd see a companion doing what is usually some pretty cool animations, only to see that their weapon is like 20 feet from their body. Like, you can see them holding the weapon properly. It looks really cool, but the weapons and their backpacks and stuff are over here floating in the air, and then they're over. It's something that I feel hopefully Ubisoft will patch at some point, because I can see why some people would find that, to be very damaging, very immersion breaking, and a very big issue, bigger issue than it was for me. I can totally see something like that happening. And the AI is not the greatest either. We can go there as well. They make crazy, bad, boneheaded decisions a lot of the time for the sake of your enjoyment, but still crazy, bad, boneheaded decisions like many other games. Their aim is also on point, even when they're making these boneheaded decisions. It's almost like the AI in this game does not miss, right? When they're throwing grenades, whatever it is, they're always on point. 99.9% accuracy. We've seen this in video games so many times. I think it's time that developers fix this. And we could talk about something else, night times in a video game. When you have that nighttime, the AI should automatically lose a lot of their accuracy. You do, right? You don't shoot exactly the same as you would during the day, whether it's real life or a video game. Our aim, our vision of what we're seeing on our screen is different. So if it's different for us, I don't know if this is possible. I don't know if AI has advanced enough, but they shouldn't still have almost 100% accuracy when it's pitch black or very dark. Nonetheless, I think it's something that developers can work on. But the reality is something like that is probably asking for a little much, and it probably won't change anytime soon. What is probably my biggest issue, my biggest beef with the overall gameplay loop, the entire experience, is for, to get that open world feel, to get that open world, that true open world experience. I feel too often they're taking that freedom away from me. They're taking me out of that experience. I want to do some of these things that Ubisoft wants me to do, but I want to do them on my own terms, on my own time. For example, the more resistance points you gain in an area, the closer you are to being forced into a cutscene with what is likely going to be some of the enemy types and the boss in that area. They send these capture parties out to get you, or you can actually pass out from bliss, which is more or less, this drug in the game, and to see what Faith wants you to do next. It's quite frustrating, and I wish that they wouldn't have done it this way. I want to get to those parts of the game. I want to do these things that they work so hard for me to experience, but I want to do them in my own time. So with the next Far Cry game, or any Ubisoft games moving forward, or any other developer that were to listen to this review, don't do that. Like, unless your game is a very focused, very narrative, linear experience where it's more about the story than gameplay, and your gameplay is just kind of average, please don't do this. Do not do this. Again, I found it really frustrating. Overall, I'd say that the gameplay is more than solid, and for me was, again, tons and tons and tons of fun. Easily, quite easily for me, the best playing Far Cry game.
Don't worry, you'll be out of here soon enough. Did you think you were free?
I really tried hard to follow along with the story in Far Cry 5 and came away somewhat satisfied, even though I feel it's probably the weakest part of the entire experience. Again, this isn't to say that the story is bad, I just think it's not as good as everything else the game offers. You're quickly thrown into this whole rookie, cop, deputy. In fact, you'll be referred to as those things depending on where you're at in the game many, many times, either rook or deputy, where you and fellow law enforcement are out to capture the leader of the cult, the Father. Of course, it wouldn't make for much of a game if things didn't go bad immediately following this scenario. You put the cuffs on the Father, many in the cult watch as you take him away. The pilot tries to take off from the area. You get resistance from the cult, even those that give their own lives to keep all of this from happening, and then we're met with the helicopter crash. The game pretty much opens up at this point, and you realize that you'll have to take down Faith, John, and Jacob to reach the Father. All three of these characters are really well done, and in my opinion, very well written, and it's easy to see why they decided to join the cult and follow the Father. Faith was a drug addict that no longer has family and friends that care about her. John was a victim of child abuse. Jacob was forced into eating another soldier to survive the Gulf War. Joseph, of course, also known as the Father, had a wife that died in a car accident. A lot of this we've seen before. None of it's really new, and it's pretty typical for Ubisoft game writing. And again, that's not to say that it's bad. I really enjoyed it. Come on. There must be like 100 pieces of entertainment between games and movies where a guy loses his wife or the entire family and suddenly feels God has blessed him in some way. It's just, it is played out, and that's, again, not to say that I didn't enjoy it. Some people won't understand the story in this game. I think that's entirely possible for it to be confusing for some. For me, at first, I'll admit it was a little confusing for me too. Oh, hey, bullets aren't the solution to every problem. I'm sure many find that to be some sort of attack on conservatives, but then, oh wait, you're gonna kill 800 enemies during your entire playthrough with bullets because you can't really go anywhere without running into bad guys. They shoot bullets, you shoot bullets. Seems like the problem is often solved to me. The truth is, Ubisoft wants you to buy this game, and they want you to have a lot of fun with it, and they want you to praise it, but they also want you to understand that in some ways, this story is not really meant to be played. If you make a key decision early, very, very early in the game can pretty much end at that point. The idea, I guess, is that there just won't be a need for the resistance and the cult will meet its end by the hands of someone else. In a gaming world where everyone feels agendas are being pushed in almost every game that they play, Far Cry 5 was still a lot of fun. The game is no stranger to its own controversy. I refuse to allow my own beliefs and the beliefs of others to keep me from having fun with these video games, whether it's a Ubisoft game, a Rockstar game, or even a Naughty Dog game. I refuse to allow that to happen. At the end of the day, this is all just entertainment and it's not to be taken seriously. They're just video games. You know, Far Cry 5 doesn't tell the best story, but I think it's probably the best game in the series. It doesn't have the unforgettable villain like Vaz from Far Cry 3, but it still has loads of content, and you know that really just kind of depends on what you're looking for. I think if you've played other Far Cry games, you can enjoy Far Cry 5 in a big way. I know I did.